G'day folks, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another crazy dose of EV and net zero insanity in MGUY EV news for Sunday the 5th of October 2025. Be sure to follow me on the usual socials for more content, links in the description, and please make sure you're subscribed and have enabled all notifications so you don't miss out on any future videos. And if you'd like to support this channel, why not buy me a coffee? Click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. So this first story is one that has been sent to me by a whole lot of people, and rightly so, because it is very, very interesting. It's from a fire department, South Metro Fire Rescue Centennial. I'll link to their channel down below. It's about 9 minutes, I won't play all of it, but it is a fascinating video because it shows a fire department response to an EV in thermal runaway. And what it shows is really just how much effort and care and caution is required to deal with one of these fires. You can put out a car fire with a watering can, basically, or a garden hose, unless it's really got hold. It's easy to put out, but this is shocking. Anyway, so I'm just going to play a little bit of the video. It's absolutely fascinating.
Batteries can run away. Okay, batteries and runaway. Let's go ahead and try and isolate the area as much as possible right now. Anybody in the fumes, out of the exhaust right now, make sure you're on air. We got a line for exposure protection only. No water. Hazmat 38, command.
I mean, full hazmat required. Breathing apparatus.
Access to the King Soopers parking lot. You should be able to pull past there a little bit, and we're going to need your blanket.
Engine 11 responded to a electric vehicle fire here at the King Soopers parking lot. The vehicle owner contacted us after they noticed smoke coming out from underneath the vehicle while it was hooked up to a charging station.
And the thing is, you know exactly what's going to happen. Once it started smoking like this, there's no way back. The only way is to let this thing burn out. And once the flames start, they actually tow the vehicle back out of the way.
Do you need water to protect that exposure right now? I mean, it's on scene. You probably just heard it, but the tires are going to start to go.
When our crews got on scene, they found the vehicle in what we call thermal runaway, which means that it's slowly burning from battery cell to battery cell within that electric vehicle. Our current response guideline for EV fires like this is to let it burn. Guidelines that we've developed in collaboration with the EPA. We found that the runoff, by putting water onto these fires, the water mixes with the products of combustion, the smoke, and creates more of an environmental impact than it does just letting it burn and letting that smoke go up into the air. So that's our current response protocols. This fire did kind of progress from a smoking battery fire. It was going into that thermal runaway pattern. We saw a pressurized flame coming out the bottom, which also indicated batteries were on fire. As it progressed, it became a fully involved vehicle fire that, again, we're letting burn.
So there you go. And there's plenty more. I thoroughly recommend you go and watch it at the link in the description, because it is fascinating to see just how much effort these damn EVs take to put out. I mean, if there's just one EV fire a day, it's a big deal for a fire department and a lot of pollution. Anyway, very interesting video. Thanks to everyone who sent that to me. So in the UK, they've agreed to get rid of all their coal-fired power stations, and they haven't put anything in place to replace it except windmills and solar panels. And we know how well that's going, don't we? And they've just approved the demolition, as the headline reads, of coal-fired power station approved. The planned demolition of the UK's last coal-fired power station has reached a key step. Ratcliffe-on-Soar Power Station was switched off on 30th September 2024 after generating electricity since 1968. Yes, 55 years, 56 years. On Thursday, Rushcliffe Borough Council approved plans to knock down the cooling towers, the main power station building, and other buildings on site with controlled explosives. According to plans, it will take at least 2030 to knock down and clear the site. So there you go, 55 years for a coal-fired power station. You'll be lucky to get a third of that for solar panels and windmills, and then it's all got to be replaced. I mean, there are arguments not to burn coal, obviously, from the CO2 emissions perspective. But the reality is that coal-fired power stations now are incredibly clean. Clean coal is one of the miracles of modern engineering, and yet we're just going to leave it in the ground and try and rely on wind and solar. It's absolute insanity. The UK is the model for how not to plan an energy transition, thanks to Ed Miliband. Another interesting article here, as the headline reads, report finds little evidence electric car grants are boosting sales. Government grants for electric vehicles, EVs, may be a waste of money because they do not appear to be encouraging more drivers to switch from petrol or diesel models, according to new analysis. The new EV market share of models eligible for the grant in September, the scheme's first full month, was unchanged from between April and June at 23.8%, the report from green transport research organisation New Automotive said. This shows it is unclear the discounts are prompting consumers to consider buying cars that they wouldn't have bought anyway, the report's author warned. One EV expert said the Department for Transport's DFT initiative hasn't lived up to the hype. Well, the reality is that people who are going to buy an EV would buy an EV anyway, and they're just getting the government subsidy as a bonus. And this is something that I've said before, that these EV subsidies and incentives are basically a wealth transfer from the poorest to the wealthiest, because it's the wealthiest in society that can afford to buy EVs, and yet they're getting all the discounts. The rest of us, we're just going to stick with our petrol cars, maintain them well and keep them as long as we can, and put two fingers up to the EV mandate. So you've got to love the Greens, bunch of nutcases, all of them. And in the UK, they've replaced one crazy leader with another crazy leader. We need pylons and solar farms, says Green leader. Yeah, like we need a hole in the frickin' head. The new leader of the Green Party said the country badly needed new energy infrastructure and there needed to be a place for new pylons and large solar farms. Yeah, because that's what everybody wants, right? Speaking ahead of his party's conference, that would be hilarious to go to, Zach Polanski told BBC Look East that local people should be consulted properly about proposed developments and then ignored. But he said it was also important to recognise that new infrastructure was needed to help tackle climate change, climate crisis. There have been numerous protests across the east of England against plans for giant solar farms and a 114-mile-long chain of pylons between Norwich and Tilbury in Essex. Well, that part of the country, Norfolk and Suffolk, some of the most beautiful country in the land, well, who cares if it's just desecrated with a chain of pylons and solar factories? Quite frankly, that's because nothing trumps saving the planet, right? I mean, this is absolute insanity. But there we go. That's what's happening in the UK. But another carbuncle on the face of the planet is battery energy storage systems, which I've dealt with in a previous video. They are a fantasy. It's a delusion to think that battery energy storage systems will get anywhere near providing the amount of storage required to smooth out unreliable renewables like wind and solar. And these things are getting even more opposition because they can be really nasty when they go up in flames. So who knows, maybe public opposition will win eventually. Fears of massive battery fires sparked local opposition to energy storage projects. More and more big arrays of lithium-ion batteries are being hooked up to electrical grids around the US to store power that can be discharged in times of high demand. I don't think they realise just how many batteries would be required to provide the equivalent of a gas turbine that you can just fire up when you need it. But anyway, as more energy storage is added, residents in some places are pushing back due to fears that the systems will go up in flames, as a massive facility in California did earlier this year. Proponents maintain that state-of-the-art battery energy storage systems are safe, but more localities are enacting moratoriums. We're not guinea pigs for anybody. We are not going to experiment. We're not going to take risk, said Michael McGinty, the mayor of Island Park, New York, which passed a moratorium in July after a storage system was proposed near the village line. At least a few dozen localities around the United States have moved to temporarily block development of big battery systems in recent years. Well, that's a very good move. I'm glad to see that people are pushing back against these things, because all of them, wind farms, solar factories, battery energy storage systems, they're all completely unnecessary if it weren't for the insanity of net zero. And just like in China, where they pre-register EVs in order to meet their sales targets and then ship them overseas to sell to some poor third world country, even in the UK, they're pre-registering EVs in order to meet targets. EV pre-registrations expected to surge by year end. Widespread pre-registration of electric cars is expected in the final quarter as manufacturers seek to meet government emission targets, members of the Vehicle Remarketing Association, VRA, were told last week. Speaking at the event held at Toyota's Burnaston manufacturing facility, Rupert Pontin, head of insight and communications at Brigo, highlighted the pressure facing car makers under the government's zero-emission vehicle ZEV mandate. The target for this year is that 28% of all new car sales must be electric, but so far registrations are tracking at just 22%. It seems inevitable that some manufacturers with some models will be pushing out stock in an attempt to minimise their ZEV mandate exposure, said Pontin. Of course, this would put pressure on late plate values, but also introduce offers into the market that offer exceptional value for buyers. Well, the trouble is that at the end of last year, they did the same. So there's a whole bunch of EVs that have fallen from last year into this year. And now what they're doing is trying to push a whole bunch of EVs from this year into next year, where the target is something like 35% or 34%, I believe. And so it's just going to collapse in a heap under its own weight eventually. It'll take time, but eventually it will just all fall in a massive heap. And finally, some good news from Australia, where we have the weakest opposition to a hard left government that you could possibly imagine. They just want to be soft left, which is kind of not the answer, really. And all the major parties are in favour of net zero at the moment. And this new leader of the Liberal Party, Susan Lee, or Susan Lee, why she spells it with a double S, I do not know, is useless and needs to go, or else the Liberals will be consigned to opposition for several decades to come. But this week, a guy called Andrew Hastie resigned from the cabinet because he wanted to oppose net zero. Good for him. He would be my choice for the Liberal leadership. And I thought that might be the first domino to fall. And as the headline reads, economically catastrophic. More Liberal MPs call for coalition to ditch net zero. Fresh cracks have emerged in the federal coalition as two more Liberal MPs break ranks to demand the party show guts and walk away from net zero emissions targets. I really hope they do. Good grief. Two more Liberal MPs are calling for the coalition to have the guts to walk away from the economically catastrophic policy of net zero emissions by 2050. It is economically catastrophic. We're seeing it already. We have some of the highest electricity prices in the world, yet we have so many natural resources. We are so blessed with natural resources in Australia. We have the largest uranium deposits on the planet, I believe, and so much coal that we don't burn here because we're saving the planet, but all we do is we ship it overseas to China, where they burn it instead. Brilliant. Speaking to the Sunday Telegraph, backbenchers Ben Small and Henry Pike say it's time for the coalition to pick a fight with Labour, finally, by formally opposing the Albanese government's commitment to net zero. Small and Pike, who hold their seats in Western Australia and Queensland on slim margins, join Conservative Liberals Andrew Hastie, Jacinta Price, Tony Payson, Alex Antic and Garth Hamilton in forcefully speaking out on the issue. Hallelujah. While both MPs previously voiced support for the Morrison government's commitment to reach net zero emissions, their intervention will likely stir tensions within the coalition, which is undertaking a review of its energy policy led by opposition energy spokesman Dan Tehan. warning the consequences of net zero would be economically catastrophic. Mr. Small drew a parallel between picking a fight on the policy and the Liberal Party's campaigns against the carbon tax and the voice to Parliament. The Liberal Party needs to be on the front foot in this debate to frame the questions about the costs of the government policies rather than accepting the moralising of the Labour Party, he said. Hallelujah. If we can't convince Australians that lower prices for literally everything from food to housing isn't a good thing for our economy, then our future as a centre-right political party is bleak indeed. If we'd slavishly followed the polls, John Howard would never have undertaken sweeping tax reform in the 1990s, and we'd all now be living under Kevin Rudd's carbon tax. And of course, we'd never have opposed the voice. It's time for us to do what is right, not because it is easy, but because our country depends on us, he said. Well, very well said is all I can say. Fully in support of this. I have been worrying about what's going to happen in Australia, quite frankly, without a viable opposition. Clearly, the Liberal Party at the moment is just not interested in opposing anything. They just want to be more like Labour. They're drifting further and further to the left, and that's just not going to fix the problems we have. So let's hope that somebody from this group can get rid of Susan Lee, because she is, quite frankly, useless. All right, that's it for this one. Thanks very much for watching. Really hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next one. Bye for now. If you'd like to support this channel and display your anti-EV credentials to your Tesla-owning neighbours at the same time, why not buy some awesome MGUY merchandise, like this mug, this baseball cap, or this t-shirt. Each high-quality item sports the MGUY No EVs sign, and they're all made to order, perfect for irritating the hell out of your local EV zealots. Visit store.mguy.tv or click the link in the description to check out the full range of products. And of course, you can always just buy me a coffee. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. Thanks very much for watching. Really hope you enjoyed it. If you've got any tips or stories, go there. If you'd like to watch another video, go there. If you'd like to buy me a coffee, go there. And please subscribe to the channel.